This is actually one of my favorite parts of Next, because as the Chief Marketing Officer, what I really love to do is connect with customers and listen to their stories. It helps bring everything to life. We spend a lot of time at this conference talking about the technology and talking about the solutions, but what it's really all about is how are we helping our customers and how are they then in turn helping their customers? And that's what this session is all about. So we have 6 great customer stories for you. We're going to start with Darryl from HSBC, who will talk about the digital transformation journey that they've been on. It's wonderful to have him here. 2 years ago, he was on stage with us telling a story at the very beginning, and they've made a lot of progress. He'll say there's still a lot to go, but it's great to see all the progress. We have Angelo Clayton from Woolworths, who will be telling a story about their retail and their transformation around the retail industry in Australia. Owens, who's here with us from Unilever, a great story. I don't want to break it, but it's actually interesting. It was actually one of the stories that when I told my kids about that they found it interesting. Lindh from Sunweek, and when we heard first about his story, it's about manufacturing. My colleague Quentin, who talked to him, is like, you've got to hear this. This is what ML is all about. This is what we're doing for customers. Super excited about that. And then Gaudet, who's going to talk about what American Cancer Society is doing and how their organization is really using, again, our ML to really help with diagnosis. And then finally, Ronny Elkayam, another personal story. He's he's part of Wix. He's here to talk about that. And the first website that my daughter ever made was on Wix. So again, a story I could really understand and share. So all of these are wonderful uses of Google Cloud technology and wonderful ways that they are all helping their customers. And so without further ado, I'd like to invite Darryl West to the stage to share a story from HSBC. Thank you.
You hear me? Is this working? Yes. Great. Good afternoon.
You're right.
So yes, I'm Darryl West. I have the honor and the privilege of leading an awesome IT team at HSBC, the Hong Kong Shanghai Banking Corporation. And we are driving a transformation of the whole company through our IT team. And I'm going to talk about what we're doing and the partnership that we've had with Google in that journey over the last couple of years. So many of you may not know who HSBC is, but we are the largest international bank in the world. We have 39 million customers. Our customers are typically people like yourselves, individuals. We have small businesses, we have companies, and we have governments as our customers. We're present in 66 countries around the world, and we have a broad range of services, right from personal services right through to global markets and investment banking. So we have a massive amount of infrastructure supporting our organization. We're moving $1.5 trillion a day through our systems. And as you can imagine, of a bank of this scale, we have a large infrastructure. Now, we are like every other big global bank. We've been in the business now for 153 years, and we built up a very large on-premise infrastructure. So at the last count, we have 169 petabytes of data. We have data centers in many centers around the world, 2 primary ones in Hong Kong and the UK, but a small spread of others around the world because we have to keep some data in countries due to regulation. And we have over 90,000 servers. And the IT team of 40,000 people this year has a budget of just over $3.5 billion on change. So one of the big issues for us is the productivity of our developers. The fact we're just spending that much money on change programs for the bank, you want to make sure you have a massive amount of productivity. Now, we've been partnering with Google now for the last 3 years, and we are, because of our nature, we are a globally systemically important financial institution, a GSIFI as they're called, and we have every regulator in the world all over what we're doing. So we have to be very careful that we are doing the right things according to our regulators. So these were the questions that we sat down with Google 2 or 3 years ago now when we started this journey. How are we going to work together? What will our regulators think about what we're doing? How do we govern the cloud activity we're doing? How do we control access to the data? Do we know where the data actually is? And do we understand the risks we're running in the end-to-end process of being on the cloud? So now we've spent a lot of time and with some delays, I guess, in getting the regulators in the last couple of years comfortable with the fact that the cloud is a good place to be for an enterprise like HSBC, and the big banks have all been with us in going in this direction. Some of the requirements we have around data security and resilience are really important. It's The trust and confidence is a core part of the banking business. So we had to make sure that anything we did with Google was going to be really strong and reliable, and the information security was going to be the best in the world. So we worked with the Google team on these service enhancements. So when we looked at the product for the first time a couple of years ago, we thought that the customer managed encryption keys needed some work. We did some work with the team on the virtual private cloud service controls so we could ring fence the data and put better data leakage protection controls. We wanted to have logging and notifications back to us so we could know that if anybody changed anything in the service footprint with Google in our services that we're running, we could get notified about that. And because of our requirement to keep data in some countries, specifically due to regulation, we had to have what we call geofencing, which is we could actually define where the data would be stored within the Google environment. So these were enhancements that we worked on with the Google team. We now feel with these enhancements to the services we have that we're now ready for prime time for a regulated global bank. So that's been a great partnership, and I think the regulators have really appreciated what we've done here together. Now, in terms of business value, well, this is a real case study of what's actually live. So this talks about global liquidity. So if those of you, and many of you here, I'm sure you're not bankers, liquidity is when you check on your mobile device what your balance is in your account. You're doing a liquidity check. You're seeing how much money you have. This process is to figure out what our liquidity or what our balance is in the bank on a global scale. So we have 47 regions or countries where we have to calculate this. And under the old way of doing it on the on-prem environment, to do our daily reporting calculations would take us anything from 9 to 14 hours to do that. We're able to do that in a couple of hours now with Google. And on a monthly basis, we have to do an analysis and some look back of how we're doing our funding and the trends. That was taking us 40 hours to do that, now taking about 3 hours. So this is now live in 28 countries. It'll be fully live by June of this year and is delivering tremendous value. And our regulators, the Bank of England in the UK, are delighted the fact that we can now provide this information in a more timely manner. So this has been a fantastic thing. And it's because we've been plugging into the massive capability, the compute capability that's available through GCP. Now, in terms of customer outcomes, we've actually partnering with Google on a top secret project. So you didn't hear it from me, and I know none of this is going out in the public domain, so this is a secret project. We're actually building a new platform for business banking. So the SME market, which is the small and medium enterprise market, is a massive business for HSBC globally. It's a significant part of our customer base. And we have decided to partner with Google to develop a whole new suite of platforms for that market. We're going cloud first from the beginning. It's going to be mobile first from the beginning, a whole new security platform. We're using a full DevOps lifecycle CI/CD pipeline using GKE. And it's going to be utilizing all the data analytics, AI, ML, and the NLP tools that we have from Google. So we're very excited about this. It's progressing really well. It's a moonshot. I know Google uses the term moonshot. It's a moonshot for HSBC, this particular project. And we think it'll be game-changing. It's going really well. The beta testing is really going really well. So that's a customer outcome that we're working on together. We talked this morning about the cloud services platform, the Antheos new newly branded product. Our engineers have been installed here in Mountain View, working with the Google team to develop this. We were the primary partner, the enterprise partner they had to develop this. It's very important because of the constraints in our business where we have to keep some data on-prem, and the regulators will also require us to keep some workloads on-premise. We wanted the ability to have an image on-prem and an image in the cloud that was the same, so that the developers could actually have a seamless experience whether they're on or off. And obviously having a common control plane to manage both of those is hugely beneficial from a productivity perspective. So this is now live and was announced this morning for general availability, and we're deploying this within HSBC at scale. So the overall results of this has been a really fantastic outcome for us. We approach this with a lot of enthusiasm, and our expectations have been exceeded tremendously. We're now developing new digital banking propositions. I talked about the SME proposition using analytics, ML, and NLP. I talked about the liquidity reporting business benefits we've had. We also are a major global player in the foreign exchange markets, and we're now able to do our AI modeling in the FX business. Used to take us 120 minutes, now it takes 10 minutes, and we can rerun those analytics several times throughout the day. We are migrating workloads from heritage data warehouses, not to be named, but they're coming from those data warehouses on-prem into GCP, and we've got now business reporting and financial reporting coming out more frequently and more accurately. And that's providing tremendous benefit and value to the finance function and the risk function particularly. The other thing we do is we are partnering with our friends here at Google to develop a suite of solutions for financial crime detection. So one of the things we do as a global bank is we have an obligation to work with the authorities around financial crime prevention and anti-money laundering. So with the ability to ingest very large time series of data and apply analytics to that, we're able to identify anomalous activity accurately, which has improved the outcomes of our detection of financial crime. So we're actually working to create a much simpler, better, faster set of risk management tools in that domain. And that'll be coming to market realized next year in 2020. And overall, our overall agility and getting to market through proofs of concepts has been great. So we've been delighted with the outcome that we've had. We have a strapline at HSBC that together we thrive, and this has been a great partnership with Google, and we're thriving together every day. So thank you for listening to me, and I'll hand over. Thank you.
One, two, there we go. Good evening, everybody. Are you all awake still? Awesome. My name is Angelo Clayton. I'm the General Manager in IT at Woolies in Australia. And I have two portfolios there. I look after our store application landscape across the fleet of our stores. I'll tell you a bit about that. And then secondly, I look after our information management capability. So our analytics and our data capability across the group. And the story I guess I'd like to share with you a little bit today is really the journey that we've gone on as an organization with Google to really drive our analytics capability within the organization. So just before I guess I get into the story, just to tell you a little bit about Woolies and who we are as an organization. So we're affectionately known as Woolies by our customers in both Australia and in New Zealand. We're probably one of the largest retailers there, and we've really been recognized for some of our large brands. We have our Woolworths supermarket business. We have our Big W general merchandise business. We provide some beer, wine, and spirits to the Australia and New Zealand market in our BWS business. And we have another liquor business called Dan Murphy's. Essentially, we serve approximately 29 million customers a week. I look at some of the HSBC stats, and I think we dwarf in comparison to some of your numbers. But essentially, we have about 200,000 staff members, again, spread across Australia and New Zealand. We really, as an organization, are about putting our customers first, really working together as a single team across our group, and then really, starting to make a difference in our community, both in the local community and I guess the broader community. So, really an awesome organization within the core fabric of Australia and New Zealand. And really about a year ago, we started to talk about this thing called data and big data and what it could mean to us as an organization. And I guess as we started to go down that path, we started to realize that data as an asset is something that we can go and unlock and start to drive an analytics kind of mindset throughout our business. And really, it started with a Saturday afternoon session with some of the senior leaders in our business going, what's our data ambition and what are some of the things we think we can achieve with this data asset? And I guess really as we started to unlock that strategy and start to put down some of the capabilities we really wanted to go after, I think we quickly realized as an IT organization that we don't have the right platforms in place to be able to support that ambition. And so really, as we sat down, we started to articulate what are some of those critical capabilities that we need to put in place to be able to unlock that business or group data strategy. And really one, it was about starting to put down the capability around trusted, reliable data that's really easily accessible. So one of the first things, I guess, the business team said to me as I joined the business was, Angelo, we've got all of this data. I just cannot get my hands on it. And part of that challenge was the fact that the data literally sat in so many different places within the organization. Each business unit built its siloed data warehouse, and it was really just impossible to be able to bring all of that data together in a trusted and in a reliable fashion. So that was kind of the first principle we needed to go after. Second was, how do we future-proof this technology stack, knowing how the data landscape is shifting so quickly with all the different technologies that's available? How do we make sure that in 3 or 5 years' time, we're on a stack that really can still service the needs of the business? Thirdly, from our CFO, making sure that the platform was cost-effective. And again, because we had so much duplication in the organization, how did we go about making sure that we could drive an efficient cost model for the entire group? Fourthly was, enabling the self-service capability. How do we make sure that once we put the data in the hands of our teams, that they really are able to go after the analytics themselves without having to come back to IT every single time they want to be able to unlock, new insights? And then lastly, like everyone else, making sure our data is secure. We have, close to 9 or 10 million customers. It is imperative that our data needs to be in a place that's secure, and only we can get our hands on. And so really, that was really the stage where we said, who should we be engaging in this market to be able to go after this capability? And I guess there was no other name that came to us but Google. Google, I guess, manages the largest data set probably on the planet, and it just made sense for us to start to engage with them. And certainly in those initial engagements, GCP obviously came up multiple times. And I think, as a platform, we were quite comfortable with GCP. I guess we were probably a little bit more circumspect about BigQuery as a capability in the GCP stack. And I guess because it's been maturing over the last few years, we put a bit of a challenge to Google and said to them, take some of our data and see how quickly you can process it. We gave them 80 billion rows of data. They loaded it on the platform, and typically on our on-prem platform, the queries we run against that data set takes probably anything between 45 minutes to an hour and a half. They ran the queries on their platform. It came back in, I think it was 2.3 seconds to be precise. And I think that was the start of the journey where we set up and said, I think there's a capability that could support our business's ambitions. But I guess as we started to engage with them and really started to understand that this was a platform we could go after, we kind of knew that there were a few more pieces of the puzzle that we needed to put in place. And when you're dealing with a retailer, you've got to keep things simple. So this was as simple a picture I could create to be able to get the CEO and the CFO on board. But really, very simplistically going, how do we make sure we take all of the data sources across our enterprise, bring that into a single place or instance, our data lake essentially, and then taking that single repository and moving that data up into the GCP platform. Again, at the beginning stages of having this discussion, we were really worried about the fact that this would probably take us 3 or 4 years to be able to really do as an organization. Multiple data sources, tons of integration we'd need to build. We'd have to go and do the visualization capability on top of that into the Google Cloud platform. We just, really thought this would be a long journey. And again, started to sit down with the PS teams in Australia from Google and our partner TCS to start to work out how we could do this and how quickly we could leverage it. And essentially, these were the components we needed to land: the enterprise data lake, the integration into the GCP cloud, and then the ability to be able to put the visualization component of Tableau on top of that. And again, we really managed to start the process around the Hadoop piece pretty quickly. And as we engaged with Google, laid another challenge to them. Well, certainly the CIO came to me last year, July, and said, Angelo, I want this entire platform up and running by the end of the year. I said, would you like my resignation now? But essentially, we started that journey in June with the first of our proof of concepts. And I guess, again, to make sure that we were future-proofing the platform, we didn't just want a platform that could compute. I think we all know that GCP has the ability to scale and compute. I think that was a no-brainer. It was really about the value add that the platform would bring over time to us. And so not only did we do the compute piece, we also did a lot of work around ML and some use cases around natural language processing. And again, as we threw the data at the platform, it literally just came back in sub-second on all the use cases we went after. And so really, once we saw those use cases working, we went back to Google again and said, guys, we got to move even faster. And so in July, we commenced the build of the platform, again, working quite iteratively with them through a DevOps and agile model. And really, by the end of September, we were live on the GCP platform. And again, full integration, all of the security standards met. We had our CISO, who, my word, is probably the scariest guy on the planet, sign off on the platform, sign off on the security. And so, again, great collaboration with Google on just, them working with us to be able to meet our security standards. But while that was great and the platform was up and running, we needed to put the enterprise visualization tool on top of that, and we did that by October. But then we actually needed to get data into the platform. And literally, by the end of November, we had put our core retail data set onto the platform, 2 years worth of history moved onto there, literally ready for the business to be able to consume and work with. It has been a phenomenal effort by ourselves, the Google team, as well as TCS, our partner. Projects like this take you 2 to 3 years to be able to land. And for us to be able to do this in the space of 4 or 5 months was just an amazing, amazing effort. Where to next for us? So now that we've got a bulk of the data on the platform, it is about putting the rest of the data onto the platform, some of our customer data, and some of the other pieces across our value chain that we want to move into the platform. And these are some of the use cases we know that we can go and unlock over the coming months. How do we do price and promotions far more targeted to our customers? How do we drive localization around our range? Again, through the insights of the data that we've got. How do we start to really do optimization? And we're talking to Google about this at the moment. How do we optimize our entire value chain, again, now that we've got the data set on the platform? So we are super excited about the capability that we can unlock over the coming months now that we have this platform in place. So I think just lastly, I want to say again, thank you to the Google team. It's been a phenomenal journey so far, and we look forward to the following 12 months with you. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, or good evening, everyone. I'm Alec Owens, written Alex. I know, very confusing, half Polish, half Scottish. I work at Unilever, and I often joke about what is my job. I don't know. We say the only constant is really change, and I guess my day job changes from day to day. But what I look after at Unilever is what we call the people data centers, and I will come on to more of that in a second. But just for those in the room that might not know much about Unilever, let me just give you a little bit of background. So we are the world's second biggest advertiser. We spend $8 billion a year marketing to our consumers. We operate across 200 markets, 500 brands. I'm sure many of you hopefully will know some of our more popular ones. But ultimately, at the core of our business is sustainability. We care passionately about environmental sustainability, but also societal sustainability. And last year, the brands that are purpose-led actually grew at 46% ahead of the rest of our business. In the 3 years while I've been at we've massively grown the sustainable business that we have, and strongly believe that brands with purpose last. We're undergoing currently in Unilever a massive digital transformation. We're a simple business. We're an R&D business to supply chain, to sales, to marketing. But inevitably, if we're to serve our consumers in the future, then we need to do so in a very digital way, and hence why we partnered with Google. So, a little bit behind what the people data centers are. That's my job. Effectively, I look after 3 pillars. The first pillar is what we call our social and business analytics capability. So that's our ability to mine all the data that we might have through search, social, ratings and reviews, or any other business data that we might access, for example, sales data. The second pillar, what we call our consumer engagement centers, or in simple language, our call centers. That is a massive source of data for us, whether that be consumers calling us about ideas to do with products, or even product innovation ideas that we can move forward with. And the third pillar is what we call at Unilever PRM, but more sensible people call CRM. So how do we then digitize the way in which we market and connect with our consumers? We currently operate across 27 markets with the PDCs. And we operate across probably now about 30 or so different languages, from Tagalog to Bahasa to English to French to German, you name it. I have a very simple objective of 1 billion one-to-one relationships with our consumers through meaningful and relevant dialogue. Some people might say that's hard, but interestingly, I've already achieved it. Thank you very much to the support and help of Google. 2.5 billion people use our products every day. And if that's not an opportunity to catch data, then I don't know what is. We use Google Cloud capability quite significantly, actually, across our people data centers. From whether or not that be Google Translation, as I said, we operate across 30+ different languages. Vision API is a large part of what we partner on, and NLP. You know, inevitably, what we have to do when we look at our search and social data is be able to condense that into things such as sentiment. And as a consequence of the partnership with Google, which we see at Unilever is very strategic, we've managed to innovate much faster than we have ever done before, and more importantly, use the capability in real-time optimization through all of our marketing that we do to our consumers. I want to tell you a little bit about a case study then, and as we said at the beginning, this is an interesting one. We've run many different campaigns at the moment using Google Cloud capability, but this is a good one. Basically, Close Up, many of you might not know it, but it's a toothpaste brand. And to give you an idea of the scale and reach and personalization that's possible through Google Cloud. Unilever Cloud is actually Adobe Marketing Cloud that we call it, that we use to do our campaigns. We run this campaign across South and Southeast Asia. Basically, our search analytics told us that everybody during Valentine's Day, or shall I say everybody, all the younger kids, the second most searched thing in Valentine's Day is what? How to kiss. And so therefore, we basically developed a campaign around the art of kissing. My partner probably tells me maybe I need to have a look at Google to understand how to kiss. You know, it was a fascinating campaign, not only because we're tapping into the younger generation, but more importantly, this campaign went live across very culturally diverse parts of our organization, from Indonesia to India to Singapore, where actually the art of kissing is very different. Our target consumers were obviously on the younger side, and as I said, ranging from Thailand to Indonesia to India. But it's wonderful how unification of KISS brings people together. So what did we end up finding? I mean, the insights that we got from this helped to really optimize the campaigns. So we were using the Vision API to decode the user-generated content, and then using that to change creatives to speak to our consumers in a much more relevant way. So ultimately, what we realized in Indonesia was the way that we were talking about the campaign to the consumers wasn't as sensitive to the cultural diversity as it needed to be, and therefore, as the campaign went live, we managed to optimize the campaign real time to ensure that we're speaking to those consumers in those markets in a much more relevant way and being sensitive to the cultural diversity that exists across the markets. It was a 4-day campaign, and in that time, we managed to reach over 500 million consumers. We saw massive uplifts in things like our brand equity and consideration, which for a marketer is very important. All of which was down to the fact that we could use Google Vision API, the NLP capability to enable us to understand how the consumers were talking about the campaign and ultimately optimize that real time. So that's just one campaign. There are many other campaigns that we've done using Google Cloud capability, both in terms of the analytics that it gives you, but also the tools. And part of what makes Google Cloud a great partner is its brain power and its resources. The data-centric culture of test, learn, and optimize has been pretty much the hallmark of our relationship with Google. And it makes us confident that ultimately going forward, we'll see new products and new applications from them in the future. As I said at the start, at Unilever, sustainability, both environmental and societal, and purposeful-led brands is important to what we stand for as an organization. And like Google, I'm confident with the people that we have in our teams that our partnership will continue to thrive. Thank you.
So, good afternoon. I'm Anders, I work at Sunweek, and I'm here to tell you a story on how Google and Sunweek together are solving a problem that has been plaguing the industry for like 50 years. Now with the technology from Google and the domain knowledge from Sunweek combined, we can actually solve for that. And I'm that happy about it, actually. So it's a story about democratizing knowledge. What does that mean, really? Could easily be a buzzword. But every industrial company has something, a core knowledge, that is really valuable. People talk about data being the new oil. I would say knowledge, that's the jet fuel. We know something, we know how to use the products, we have the know-how. With this new technology, we can codify that, we can structure it, we can distribute it. In that way, creating a lot of new customer value, an entirely new business model for us. This is a story about that. So talking about Sunweek. Sunweek is a Swedish company, and they have some stats here, but I think the most interesting figure is missing actually. It's 157. Sunweek has been around since 1862. It actually started with a democratization process. It was our founding father, Göran Göransson, up in Sandviken in Sweden. He perfected a Bessemer process to make steel. So he made high-quality steel available in large quantities. And that really drove the industrialization of Sweden starting in 1862. And we've been around since, and obviously a company that old, we need to embrace innovation, we need to stay relevant. And we have ridden many waves of innovation in the past. And this one here, we're talking about digitalization, we embrace it, it's something new and exciting. We do everything from nanotechnology to mining machines. And I represent a division called Applied Manufacturing Technologies. And our job is basically to take this new technology and apply it in manufacturing to drive customer value in a new way, and thus creating a massive new business for Sunweek. So let's talk about manufacturing. It's a wonderful world. Not many people have been inside of a factory, and I think you should go there, see how things are made. This is turning. The process of cutting metal at a very high pace with micrometer precision. And this is it's fundamental. It's in every car, in every airplane, in every watch you have. This exists. The process of cutting metal, and that's what we do at Sunweek. It's a massive industry. Not many people know about that, but machining, the process of cutting metal, actually has a spend of roughly $500 billion every year. $500 billion. It touches everything you do. So imagine improving that process, the impact, not only on the industry, but also on society. But this is very hard. How do you select the right tools? How do you set up the machine? What parameters do you use? How quickly do you run the tool over the surface and all that? If you do it wrong, you can destroy the machine, the workpiece, and everything like that. And here we start to see the challenges. Now here's a customer of ours, and that's a CNC machine. You see up to the right, that's the human-machine interface. I think that's a 2018 model. That's how the interface looked like. About 70% of all the parts are programmed using that. Basically writing assembly code, trying to figure out how to go from a drawing to a finished part using that. That's kind of hard. So to do that, we have machine operators, and they're tremendously skilled. But the thing is, they're going into retirement. So in about 5 years' time, a third of these guys will be gone. Imagine all that knowledge walking out the door, right? So here's an interesting problem to solve. You have a $500 billion industry. Use that in 70% of the cases, and 30% of these guys are walking out the door within 5 years. That's a meaningful customer problem. And this is really where Google comes in. And we thought we need to solve this one. We need to help our customers to solve this one. We have the domain knowledge at Sunweek, but we need a technology partner. And we talked to a lot of people, honestly. Some other cloud providers, they were more inclined to try to push us to build a data swamp or, a data lake. But as we get to Google, I really love that because they asked me two really great questions. Now, the first one, help me to understand the problem you're trying to solve. And we started teaching Google about manufacturing, and we had great fun visiting factories and all that. Secondly, how can we help you solve it? So we created a team here, basically, with people from Google, Avalon, a Google partner, ModuleWorks, a German company with a bit of expertise, and the core team from Sunweek, and said, let's solve that now. Let's solve this now. Let's create an application that will solve this problem together. And again, it's very straightforward. That's what I love about the industry. You have your drawing, you have your blank, and you want to do the thing at the right. And this is actually one of the first parts that we created using this solution. So how does it look like? So I'm going from here to this. It's an iPad app. So we built this using the knowledge of Sunweek, in essence, and we simplified the programming to an extent. I actually trained 2 Googlers yesterday here to program CNC. In about 2 minutes, they programmed the first own parts. And there's a really lot of things going on here. Basically, you touch the feature you want to machine, right? The system identifies it with a bit of sequence here. You generate the G-code, you send it to the machine, etc. You get the picture here. But one of the key things in this software is that we infuse it with what we call recipes. So as the customer touches a feature here, they get recommendation what tools to use, they select the recipe, the parameters are automatically populated, and you're done. So you have 75 years of Sunweek experience of machining in your back to do that, as soon as you pick up the application. And this is made possible thanks to Google Cloud. You know, all the calculations happen in the cloud. We use Kubernetes, Istio, PubSub, etc. And we can scale it massively. About 20 million customers out there. It's good fun. So some results. You bring programming down from hours down to minutes. That's about 19x improvement. 80% less prototyping and testing. You know, the productivity, how fast you can run the machine, is up 10 to 20%. And this is an industry where you chase percentage points, you know. And we save a lot of energy in the process here. So in the end, you know, I think every industrial company should look inside, see what is our domain knowledge, what do we know, what's our know-how, and ask the fundamental question, how can we scale this? How can we codify this into applications like this? Doing so, you will create a massive customer value and a new business for yourself. And the key is to find the right partner. And we found it in Google Cloud, and we're going to continue now for another 150 years to make things better together. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Mia Gaudet from the American Cancer Society. How about I tell you about a story about how we're making cancer research advances in months rather than years compared to just a few years ago. Machine learning is impacting cancer research across the continuum of cancer. Today, I want to tell you about a recent breast cancer project that leverages the American Cancer Society's long-term investment in cancer data resources together in partnership with Slalom and Google Cloud. For over a century, the American Cancer Society has dedicated its mission to preventing cancer, saving lives, and diminishing suffering from cancer through research, advocacy, education, and service. As the Strategic Director of Breast Cancer Research at the American Cancer Society, I lead a portfolio of research in cancer prevention and prognosis. The more we learn about breast cancer, the more we understand it's more than just one disease. So my colleagues and I have dedicated our careers to better understanding the risk factors for all types of breast cancer so that we can advance prevention and treatment of different types of breast cancer using personalized prevention and treatment approaches. As cancer researchers, we share a common problem with many of you. That is, we have a wealth of data around us from many diverse sources, but it's really understanding how can we yield new insights into this data. Data must be collected, standardized, and analyzed so that the results can be interpretable and useful. In our case, we had over 20 years of lifestyle data and cancer tissue specimens from women who were diagnosed in the American Cancer Society's Cancer Prevention Study 2, which is one of the largest cancer research projects in the US. Slides from these tissue samples, such as the ones that you can see held here, can provide new insights about breast cancer, but the challenge is how to identify and use clues beyond what a pathologist can see under a microscope, so that we can gain new insights into the different types of breast cancer. Last fall, we initiated a collaboration with machine learning experts at Slalom and Google Cloud to unlock breast cancer insights from the breast tissue samples themselves. So a first step, and one important perhaps to your organization, is to understand each other's language and tools. I don't speak fluent computerese, and my colleagues at Slalom don't speak epidemiology. But it's important that we understand each other's perspective and insights. Working together, we overcame barriers with the slides themselves. So there's a lot of variability in the quality of the slides, as well as the variability in the color and artifacts such as the blue ink that you can see at the bottom there. From there, we tiled the images to improve computational efficiency and applied unsupervised machine learning at scale using ML Engine. And this helped us to identify patterns in the tissue images that you can see here, colored by the different colors to represent the different patterns that were detected in the tissue images. And so some of these patterns that we detected were similar to what the pathologist sees under the slide, such as differences in the cell center caused by the cancer, among other features. Finally, we group these tiles based on these different patterns into groups. And it would take a team of pathologists years to identify these patterns. Even then, each of those pathologists may not be able to do this consistently, but a machine learning algorithm learned and identified these patterns without any bias that humans bring, and also far exceeded the pace of a pathology team. So any good scientist first checks the quality control of their data. So the first step was to examine what these different groups might represent from what we know from the clinic. And in fact, one of these groups showed us how the fat cells in the different cancers, as you can see from the box in the blue. But other groups brought up patterns that we didn't expect, which is one of the benefits of using an unsupervised approach. So in the past few months, we've been matching these clusters with other data, surveys completed by these women over the past 20 years, before and after they were diagnosed with breast cancer, and we're looking at these clinical data, their lifestyles, and other exposures over their lifetime. And with these data, we hope to better understand how to prevent different types of breast cancer and identify the characteristics of the most deadly of the breast cancer types. Our ultimate goal is to provide individualized recommendations for cancer prevention, early detection, and treatment. At the American Cancer Society, we, like you, are passionate about our success and what it means for the world. And like you, we feel the urgency in our mission, the need to garner insights from the data around us, and then to act, to give patients years rather than months. So finally, I'd like to thank Slalom and Google for moving us closer to this goal in ways that we couldn't have imagined even just a few years ago. Thank you.
So the first website I built was a perfect combination between a single image and a text paragraph. Now, it was super easy to create, and it was incredibly fun. You might look at it and say that's a simple website, but back then, in the early days of Netscape Navigator, that was nothing short than incredible. Well, 25 years have gone by, and today's websites are much more complex. They are complex business solutions. We have 150 million users that are building complex web solutions using Wix. Today, I'm going to walk you through our product evolution and show you how we address the needs of our users, from entrepreneurs, small businesses, web agencies, and large enterprises. I'm also going to talk about the collaboration with Google and how it helps us address the needs of our users and their customers. The first thing you need when you build a website is great design. Now, if you're challenged, like me, only on the design aspect, then you probably need this tool. This is the ADI, Artificial Intelligence Design Tool. When I use the ADI, it helps me build amazing looking websites, even without any design skill. But if you have just a bit of a talent, or you're a qualified designer, you might want to move to this tool. This is the visual editor. The visual editor with simple drag and drop, layers, animations, video backgrounds, parallax effects, and much, much more. You can create stunning results. In fact, we see designers and web agencies all around the world using the visual editor to create amazing designs like this. But a pretty website will take you so far. You need a business solution. So let's take this site as an example. This is a site by Jason. He's a keynote speaker. I know him, by the way, much better than me, yet Google invited me here. Let's break down his site and see what's in it. So as a visitor, if I'll visit his site, I can leave my details and I flow right into the CRM system, to the built-in CRM system. I can chat with him and he'll answer right from his mobile phone. I can read his blog. I can also see his availability and book sessions directly on his website. I can even listen to his podcast where he manages the podcast on his website. So that's a business solution. But what if that's not enough? What if you need more flexibility? What if you need your own data, your own data source that is not necessarily a built-in solution? So here comes Corvid by Wix. Corvid by Wix is a serverless development platform. What it really means is that we've opened up our system and you now can write code directly on the client side and manipulate objects, visual objects on the website, or write code directly on the backend side and do whatever you want with the data, manipulate it, fetch data from different sources. And in this example, it's a real estate business. That's a real example. The owners of this website wanted to fetch data from external sources to merge it with their own data on the Wix database, but also to pull from an MLS system data listing so they can present it to their customers and their customers can search the listings. So that was done in days instead of weeks or even months. So that's the Corvid by Wix system. Now, once you have your website all geared up and ready, the next thing you want to do is make sure that it shows up high on search. So I'm happy to say that with the amazing collaboration with Google and the people with Google, we've built the SEO Wizard. Now, the SEO Wizard is a personalized, tailored plan for your website. Well, if you follow the steps of this wizard, you will probably be listed high on search. And how do I know that? Because 1.2 million users have already used the SEO Wizard, and 67% out of them are shown up on the first page of Google. This is pretty remarkable. The next thing I want to show you about the collaboration with Google is connecting an external database. Well, you can connect almost any database to a Wix website, but if you have a Google database, and in this example, Firestore, if you have Firestore, with just a few clicks, you can connect it to your website and show data on your website from the Google database. The next thing is my favorite part, teamwork. Well, no one wants to work alone, right? You want to work with a team, and you have many developers on your teams, sometimes more than one designer, and you want to allow them to work with their own tools, to work locally, so they can fetch the code with their own source control, run it locally, debug it, merge it, push it to production, and show it to users. They can even push it to production gradually, not immediately to all 100% of the users. And they can even A/B test it. The same as we do in Wix, you can do on a Wix website. With all these amazing capabilities that I could only scan few of them, then what we saw recently is amazing demand from enterprises all around the world asking to use our system. And why is that? Because we take away all the hassle from performance, from scalability, from privacy regulations, GDPR, accessibility, and much, much more. So with the collaboration with Google, I'm really happy to say that we've managed to build tools that allows our users to build great websites that scale. Thank you.